You entered the world with an adrenaline rush of a C-section. You tore your place into history instantly. Your life was set up in Los Angeles, California, and moved away from the tides. But if you were a tide, you'd be a high tide. And if I were a poet, you'd be a subject. Varan Azarian says if you are faced with a mountain, you have several options. You can climb it and cross the other side. You can go around it. You can dig under it. You can fly over it. You can blow it up. You can ignore it and pretend it's not there. You can see it, turn around, and go home. Or you can stay on the mountain and make it your home. A very special person in my life has not only seen the mountain, but has dealt with it on every emotional level. This current person has done it at the current age of 15. And he's my brother, Miles High. A collection of poetry about an older brother's response to a younger brother's accident, featuring the timeline of Ken from before his accident, Alex from right after, and 5,280 feet from now, wrapped around the poem, woven into works, all by myself. But like all tides, they had their moments of lowness, times where you couldn't feel like doing anything until the moon was calling you from your existence, until the moon drew you a new gravity, a gravity where your first sight of a knife continues on to advance out into the world. See, if the moon that's drawing you close is truly cheese, then you're a sculptor. I remember coming home from Educares on our first day of elementary school. Ken had moonbeam smiles coming across his face about his school day. He dashed into the house and started screaming at our dad, asleep on the couch, about his day and a new friend he had met. But in a moment of eloquent nonsense, my dad interrupted and asked him about his new friend's skin color. My brother sat down and said something along the lines of, "I don't know. I guess I'll check it out tomorrow." And my young and naive self at the time couldn't realize what he had even said and how much it meant about him then until now. I remember Ken's desire to fit in as he moved past kindergarten friendships and into the infamous middle school. He figured out the numbers on a lock to open the secret vault to popularity. It all depended on how many name brands he wore. That swoosh would take over his brain like a parasite to the point where if it didn't have the check mark on it, it wouldn't get the check mark and put into his elite closet. Oh, Ken, I remember the days where you would come home and take your Nikes off as if you were fighting that addiction with a conviction to get your shoes off your own feet. Ken dreams now of a Barbie house with a massive walk-in closet to fit all of his clothes. He dreams of having a 3-story garage with his millions of dollars worth of cars and a movie theater in his home, but I dream for him to be more than a walking advertisement. I went up to him recently as he was hitting golf balls without his Nikes on, and I asked him where his Nikes were. He answered and asked why I'd bother to say that to him. I responded that it was just weird seeing him without them. He turned towards me and said, with a swoosh in his eyes, that his shoes don't define him, and so I challenged him and I said, "What does define you?" He said his friends do. At least that's one thing that he retained since kindergarten. Ken, you could have so much going for you if you actually passed a swoosh. My brother could build a house with his bare hands if it wasn't for the fact that he wouldn't want to get his Nikes dirty. My brother could hold the world on his back if it wasn't for the fact that he wouldn't want to get the third world's dirt on his shirt. My brother could invite the bullied kid to his table if it wasn't for the fact that the same kids that isolate him to his table of one, his friends that define him are the same ones that isolate him to his table of one, are the same ones that define him there. Ken, could you realize that you are more than a mannequin? You are more than a brand zombified product placers? Could you realize that your check marks, checking off squares on a bucket list, should thus be more than just obtaining other check marks? And I know that I say this as your older brother, so obviously I know nothing about anything, but I know the road that you're heading on. And it isn't good. And I'm not saying to abandon the swoosh. I'm saying to realize that you are a human. And you should do more than wear clothes and impress people, because when you go out of high school and advance on into college, people don't care anymore if you have the coolest shoes or the coolest clothing. They care about your character. Ken will eventually find a Barbie of his own, and they will be as perfect together as the plastic dolls themselves. But beforehand, he will have to do a reality check. And if Ken were here, as cliche as it sounds, I would tell him to check off the check mark. You grew up in a home filled with music, so when you grab my drumsticks and play that beat of your own drum, I wasn't surprised, but I know that you knew that tune of, "Hey, brother, there's an endless world to be discovered." Because you traveled to the dark side of the moon yourself and saw it. The problem is, you didn't come back the same way. At first, I thought that the man that I was scared of was Ken because I didn't think that I could create anything worse. But Miles could, and he did. He created Alex. Disclaimer, Miles has had a traumatic brain injury, hospitalized on June 10th, transported to Atlanta in mid-July for therapy, moved back in late October, and continues to do therapy here locally in our city. He has been in a wheelchair since June. He cannot stand on his own. He has lost control over his balance and his body, and for that matter, every single muscle control. He has regained some, but I can't say that his brain is one that is repaired all the way, and then there's the creation. See, Ken was scary because it was a bloodsucker. It was a vampire on Miles' wallet. There was no control over the swoosh in his closet, all of it. The shoes, the socks, the Janowskis. It was a controlled contamination of a common child caused by Nike, but it could be fixed. And I didn't see the same light with Alex. There have been days where Miles wouldn't talk. He was afraid that if he talked, that everybody around him would die. Miles said that he'd trust Alex over Mom, so when Mom told Miles that everything was going to be okay, he just sat there and shook back and forth and squirmed as Alex had full control. Alex isn't a brain. Alex is an aftermath. Alex is the inside parts of Miles, telling him lies and frauds to the point to where which he believes it. Alex is a leech on Miles' brain that scares me to think about because I don't know anything about medical therapeutics, but if I was needed to help Miles, I sure as heck would. The problem is that when Miles thinks these thoughts, he trusts them over me, which I have to just sit there and deal with since, well, he's been in a traumatic brain injury. Alex is an infection, a common side effect of a traumatic brain injury in which one hears thoughts from somebody that isn't real. But how many times do I have to look at my impaired brother not talking or attempting to look up porn for the 1,000th time on his phone or flipping off his mother, who is the only one that has been there for him this entire time before I can look at him dead in the eyes and scream, Alex isn't real! I just want him back. I want the brother who would tell me how ugly my outfits looked because that at least means he's talking. I want the brother who rides around the neighborhood on his bike because that at least means he's moving. I want the brother who could eat food with us at the table without assistance because that means that he can sit up straight without a damn seatbelt, but Alex won't give him back to me. And I'm tired of this accident. Miles, I love you. Come back. You saw the dark side of the moon and it changed from a cheese wheel to an apple, and you changed from a saint into a suspect of the world around you, interrogating your each and every step until you figured out the techniques to escape your cell that they tried to lock you in, but social prison wasn't your place to stay until you wanted to stay, and then you did. And then the bad influences came. I looked at you, locked up in the prison that is your brain. It's hard to tell if you want to escape because sometimes you say it's not worth the time to fill out the paperwork to escape the 5 foot 8 inches trap. I come into your lair for a phone call interview and I struggle to hear what you have to say, and so I ask you to repeat yourself. And then you do, and then I have to ask you to repeat yourself again, and then you do, and I have to ask you to repeat yourself a third time, and I want to break down this wall in between us. I want to break down this wall and give you a hug. I looked through as many books as I could stand to, did as many Google searches as I felt necessary before I came to my notes. There wasn't any poem that could accurately describe how I felt. Originally, it was confused, then it became frustrated, now it's just sad. I can't say that I don't know how to deal with this because I have been for a while, but I saw a picture of you from before your accident and I struggled to recognize you. And I struggled to think back to a point where this wasn't my life. And I've never heard the word transfer so often. I'm still not used to having to hear the word, son, help me get your brother up the stairs so that he can take a shower. I'm not used to having to help him take a shower. I wish the water could wash away your problems like it attempts to do mine, but I know that my problems go way past this incident, but that doesn't mean that this isn't one of the worst, or like typing letters on this phone can help me fix it, but you can't even hold your phone on your lap with 2 hands. You just sit it on your lap and struggle to hold it down and type with your pointer finger, and you have to go back every other word to fix a typo because you can't control the shaking of your fingers, and I still give you pseudonyms. I know you'd be embarrassed if you knew that I wrote about you, let alone having already written 2 poems with you in mind. It's not like you'd ever come to a poetry slam to hear me do them at some point, but it's more of a means to transfer stress into a poem. But I miss you. I didn't think I would ever have to miss you walking. I miss you moving yourself. I miss you feeding yourself. I miss you being able to get up from the chair, to go to the Xbox, to turn it on, and then go through all of the controls on Need for Speed without crashing everywhere. I miss you being able to drink from cups without spill-proof lids, but I digress. Mom would get mad at me for ranting. You still have support. You still have friends. They might not come over as much anymore, but they're there. And we care for you. All 5,280 feet of your beautiful, imperfect life. You were never much of a hugger. Or at least you never were with me, but since I know that there's no way that I'm cool to you. But just remember, you are not a silk cloth that runs ironed. You are wrinkled, yet woven into works and stories and a language that means more to you than it ever does to any of us, because you struggle today to speak it, and the action of me standing up from the phone in front of you makes you question your being. But I miss being with you, and I know you can sign yourself out. I know that the moon sparkles from your sun. I know that the moon will never rotate again for you to see the dark side. I want you to look at the light enough and realize that this is the world for you. And the world has wanted to close its eyes on you for a long time, but I believe in you climbing the mountain. And why stop there? Climb the moon, kiddo. Because you have a future bigger than this solar system could ever hold you to.